Good evening, KZFR. This is Kevin with your host for Writing on Air. Writing on Air is made possible by the generous contributions of KZFR supporters and by Hall Marketing and Design. Owner Charlotte Hall and her team can get your business the attention it desires through creative marketing, design, and branding. They are specialists in creating brochures, websites, ads, and promotional materials. Whether you're a new business or a business looking for a new look, Hall Marketing and Design can create an image that fits your style. For a free consultation, call 895-9484 or visit hallmarketingdesign.com. Well, how's it going, everyone? This is a fantastic Wednesday night. Weather is cooling down, and I'm happy you guys are tuning into the show. Again, this is Writing on Air with KZFR, and I'm your host, Kevin. And unfortunately, my co-host, Brandon, tonight actually probably won't be here for a while. He just started school at Chico State, so go him. He's getting himself learned. It'll be great. But that means he has classes right now. So unfortunately, that conflicted with his schedule. But in lieu of him tonight, we have Nik, who has been on the show. I think you were on the show last time.
Yep.
So this is your part two.
Thanks for having me back.
It's going to be awesome. I'm so stoked for this. We have some pretty cool stuff planned. Before we get into that, though, I wanted to say anyone who is interested in writing, because this is a show about writing, people can submit, be part of the show. I'll have your thoughts on that in a second, Nik.
Sure.
If you want to submit and be part of this, or contact me in any way and make a suggestion, or like I said, put forth your own work, you can do so at write.onair@gmail.com. One more time, that's WRITE.onair@gmail.com. You can contact me through Facebook, although the email is probably quicker just because I check that on a more regular basis. And as I've said many times in the past, this is a show where I am the frame, I would say. This show is the frame, and you guys provide the artwork. And we're just here to discuss it and let your creative juices get flowing. So tell us about yourself to, I guess, remind people who you are.
My name is Nik Cook. I'm a local copywriter. I don't know. That's a really open-ended question. I have been writing since I was like 10 years old. I've always wanted to write ever since reading the Never-Ending Story by Michael Ende.
That's a solid one. Yeah.
It's a lot better than the movie. The movie ends about halfway through the book, and there's a lot more to the book. Ooh. And it's, yeah.
Nice.
Anyway.
Well, we have a lot of pieces that we're trying to get through tonight, and both of us were kind of trying to see what we could squeeze in. But last time I asked you at the end of the show a question.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Do you remember what that question was? I'll elaborate again, yes. What I asked last time was, how do you make writing a career? Because that's what you're doing right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. It's a little difficult to get into writing if writing is your specialty. Usually, writing is something that people get into through other channels. Like they'll have other technical skills, or they'll be kind of they'll have like soft development skills. They're web, they know HTML, they know CSS, and then they through necessity they have to write a couple web pages, and then
through necessity.
And and then they'll get into it from there. But as a straight writer, it's hard to start. But once you have experience and you have a solid, once you get the momentum, it's rewarding, and it's really, I don't know, it's fruitful. Yeah.
Yeah, you're creating. I mean,
totally.
What else can be cooler than that?
I forget who said it, but someone who said, happiness isn't finding like whatever joys you want to experience in life, but it's whatever struggles you want to have.
Yeah.
Right? Whatever problems you want to solve. And, writing or some kind of creative field is definitely like, those are the problems I want to be solving. That's what I want to be thinking about all the time. So,
man.
Yeah.
So it fits in anywhere pretty much.
Yeah.
Man, okay, so we also are doing this a little bit backwards too, because we thought, hey, you've had one question already. Let's keep it rolling. Cause
sure, yeah.
Let's keep picking your brain. It's great up there. So we're gonna stick with that. And the second one that we kind of came up with together, which was I think a really solid question, was so you do writing as a career. How do you stay motivated to keep writing when that's your job?
Yeah.
For yourself personally, I should say. Big question.
It's hard sometimes, but there's nothing like a bad job to put pen to paper, you know what I mean? Like if you're,
it squeezes it out almost in some
Absolutely.
way.
But, like when you're really writing and when you're really in that creative mindset, to borrow a metaphor, your brain becomes kind of like a jet engine, and just all this shrapnel around just gets sucked into this thing and gets process
Churned out.
it. Yeah, churned out on the other side. So whatever you put in it, whether it's a job or it's like an hour and a half bus ride home every day, that's your commute, and that will turn into poetry somehow.
Yeah, the engines keep running. You just got to keep feeding it. Doesn't
Totally.
stop.
Yeah.
Man, that's a solid way to put that. Well, go ahead.
Oh, that segues perfectly into the poems I was going to read.
You beat me to it.
Yeah. So the next poem is called 100 Words on a Tablet of Acetaminophen. And
explain this one.
It's funny to me because for a while I was writing shopping content for Amazon.com. And, like every hour we'd have to write these 300-word articles about, and you'd receive like 8 assignments a day. You'd get, baby acetaminophen was one, men's motorcycle jackets was another. You'd get organic, baby food in powder form as a third. You'd get lamp finials, as, you get the picture. But there's something so funny about having to really concentrate on really droll, really boring, banal subjects all day.
Yeah.
Your brain doesn't really like being bored that much, so it finds ways to entertain itself. This is, I guess, a reaction to that, and it's just kind of a riffing kind of, jazz musicians or stand-up comedians will like pick a topic and they'll go back and forth and they'll joke about the same subject over and over and over again. Like the joke around the table is that one of our friends are fat or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And they'll go for like half an hour just like figuring out new ways to call this guy overweight. And so it's a much shorter, it's not half an hour, but this is my take on acetaminophen. What a little headstone to rest under. A pale sun to whitewash an overcast sky. A humble button. Push it through to neaten you. Unfasten it from your collar and be calm. The dinner party thins and goes, and all there's left to do is quiet the mind. My, what use the little bugs, skittering in my attic to catch the spiders. With such light feet, they don't even wake the dust. Here it is, a taut drum to drum like a god, pulling the cool rain on your inner wildfires when you sing. A little cloud in itself, to drift perhaps lazily between you and the harsh sun. Turn this pearl in your palm. In the right hands, this is a miniature fortune.
I like this one so much because it feels like when you read it, at least for the image it evokes in me, is like you're holding on to this little tablet. And each time you turn it a different direction, your entire mind is shifting for a different perspective of it. And so it's just like this
like
constant,
that.
just like this multifaceted thing. I guess it would have facets too, this little pill. And it's just such a cool thing because each time it flips, there's a different side of it. And it's hilarious in its own way.
Right. It's, there's a lot of like tongue-in-cheek humor in this of like being really, really serious. It's like a really serious poem about,
something not so serious.
Super boring everyday object. Yeah.
Oh man, what a job to have.
Yeah.
Well, you have a second one that connects kind of with this too.
Totally. So when you write for the web, half of your life is often spent in the Google keyword planner. And, like looking up what keywords people are searching for to actually putting into Google to search for their baby food or whatever the subject may be. So I did a little bit of research on what are the most popular keywords in poetry, and I just jammed them into one poem. So if anyone wants to, if anyone publishes this poem online, their SEO ranking might get a boost.
Don't say that too loudly.
Yeah. This is Google Keyword Poem Planner. This is a poem about life, a love poem, and a Mother's Day poem. A poem of love quotes from other funny, famous poems for kids and Christmas. A friendship poem about death and Valentine's Day, you could say. Maybe this is 2 short poems, and today is their anniversary. Tomorrow, Thanksgiving, and then a funeral. This is the poem you're looking for. The poetic narrative, lyric, rhyming poem with all the birthday giggles and cute Urdu parts you're after. Poetry for every occasion. The best poem to hand out on Halloween. This is it. an epic bio to tell for all time until tomorrow. You'll long for a diamante. This is not a diamante, but it is a ballad and a sonnet by Billy Collins. This is the baby that becomes a suicide poem. Good morning, death poem. Hello, poetry.
Man, it's so packed. It's the only way I can put that. It's so good. Towards the end of this, I like that 2-line stanza right there. You long for a diamante. This is not a diamante. And for those of you who don't know, I went ahead and looked this up to get the exact accurate thing, and I thought it was perfect. It's a 7-line poem describing two opposite subjects using only adjectives, nouns, and participles, which is essentially simple. Is the best way to put it. And this thing, by adding on all these simple things, just became incredibly complex, and you're just saying, this is not going to be a simple one. I just put everything in here for you. That's all I was doing. And that's such a hilarious way of putting that.
So yeah, they're you know, I'm a little off kilter. So you know, there's humor to find in the everyday sort of stresses, and there's a way to make fun of yourself, make fun of the struggles that you're going through in your writing, and I think this was that's my example of that.
A solid nail.
Yeah.
Hit with the hammer. Yeah. Oh man, there was a feeling I got when I was reading this, which was really interesting too, which is going to segue to our next point, and I think you'll dig it a little bit. This idea of catering words to people, like using words to cater consistently, like a different form of entertainment, almost like some way to hook them and bring them in, to evoke certain things, because that's what this is saying. It's basically saying, here are the words that everyone's using already.
Oh yeah.
So like, we're just going to keep them going, to keep this river flowing right where we want it to go exactly.
Right.
And this, it's, in a way, it's almost like an entertainment. It's keeping people motivated towards one thing, one subject.
Yeah.
And so reversing that, it's interesting because there's not much of yourself in this, besides the fact that you're putting these words in there and you're the one that created it.
Yeah.
And so you kind of spin that around and go, well, what happens when there is a lot of you in the poem?
That's something I'd like to talk about after I read the next poem also.
Perfect. I primed a little bit too.
Yeah. I appreciate that. The next poem is currently untitled because it's had like 50 titles in the past, and it keeps changing, and I printed out a title on this one, but I'm unhappy with it. It's still editing. But yeah, I'll talk about it afterwards. When we die in our beds, our ghosts lay their hands, yours on my shoulders, mine on your waist, and they sway to the false music of the moon. I know because when I wake, I miss you fresh, I miss you new. Every morning I cut the zip ties, holding your absence to the packaging, like a paring knife, a bread knife, or a cleaver.
Oh man. Okay. I know you're ready to speak on this one. Go for it.
Oh, there's a lot. What did you just say?
So basically, when there's a lot of you in the piece.
Yeah, a lot of me in the piece. And I tend not to like personal poems because two reasons. The first being that, this kind of locks me into who I was at this time. And it's like this weird snapshot that I keep having to perform over and over again. And I don't know, I think musicians must feel a similar thing when they write like a really personal song and then they have to perform it every night for 50 years or whatever, however long their careers are. It's uncomfortable, but it's not, it still was a part of my life, so I still connect to it on some level. The second part, the reason why I don't really like personal poetry is because everything is already immensely personal. I am the author of all of these poems, so if they're my thoughts and it's my poetry and it's my vocabulary and it's my word choice and it's there's a lot of me in there already. To make myself the subject also seems a little self-aggrandizing. It's
that's a solid way to put that.
But yeah, to talk about the poem specifically, this one's interesting, I think, for myself at least, because I'm trying to do what I'm trying to do in this poem with the images like cut the zip ties, holding your absence to the packaging like a paring knife, or something is trying to create these really everyday, visceral, connections to the reader. Like everyone has bought a knife at TJ Maxx at some point and had to cut the little zip ties. That experience. And also, it kind of takes you. It's surprising language to find in poetry, which I think helps make old ideas fresh. To come up with new ways to say things,
Gives a little spark to it.
Totally.
Much,
Yeah.
I think we had met just briefly yesterday, and you had mentioned you wanted to talk on the word why you use zip ties. That was something and I think you kind of just said that too.
Sure, yeah.
But I so appreciate the thought behind that, because I have people who sometimes will sit down and write a piece of poetry, and they just write it and they're done. They walk away, and it took them 30 seconds and they moved on, and it's fantastic. And I have other people who I've met who will write a piece of poetry and then 10 years later come back and rewrite it. And that's the best part of this whole thing is even if it's finalized and printed on a piece of paper, it doesn't mean it's done with it.
Yeah.
You're always reworking this, and you added flavor to it because you wanted a certain word, and so you thought about one word in that entire piece, which is phenomenal. That's such a beautiful, beautiful point to look at.
What's the famous Robert Frost quote? Poetry is never done; it's just abandoned.
Yeah. That's oh man. We should put that in a side note for that one, for this one piece. Pretty much, it's never done, just abandoned. Especially for the title, you had something there, and then you're like, I don't want to do this again, and you change it, which arguably is so intimate as well for the title. You're like, this is the first thing they see for the writing.
Right.
It's the very first word or words.
Yeah.
Before they even touch the writing. It's amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
I just thought of a third reason I don't like personal poetry.
Yeah, go for it.
If I can.
Yeah.
If you'll indulge me. You end up writing about a lot of personal experiences, and then you, as a writer, you can't choose which poems become good poems.
Yeah.
So it's, there's no, it's not like the more you feel, the more genuinely, your heart aches for a specific situation, the more genuine or the more sincere the poem's going to sound, or,
Yeah.
So you get this weird random selection of what am I trying to say? Like, your good poems don't end up being the poems that were the closest to you, and that creates a weird effect where the poems that I really wanted to, these were the important parts of my life. This is what I really want to communicate. Those are kind of
fall by the wayside almost. Man, that's such an interesting topic too, because at this point it's discussing the intimacy of you and the readers.
Yeah.
Because you're saying, well, they've chosen this part, but sometimes I want to show them this part, and this is the part they want. And so when it comes into a business perspective and stuff, this is the part you give them. But it's a huge disconnect to be well, what's going to be received? It's to be a little bit on the nerdy side of things. I guess there's an old Dungeons and Dragons topic of wild magic, where you cast a spell and you have no clue what's going to happen, pretty much. And it's similar to this. You write this piece, and even if you're as explicit as you can possibly be, it's still going to go in directions where you're not sure, and be received in ways that you'll never know.
And if you try to rein in your poems like that, they're not going to end up good. You have to have that. You have to have a loose grip on your subject matter and the words, and you have to let the poem kind of carry itself too as you're writing it.
Ugh.
Yeah. I think that segues pretty well into my next one, because the next one I was not intending to write a poem about this subject matter. I'm gonna reveal who John Cristie is after the poem.
Okay.
But the poem's entitled John Christie's House.
Keep us in suspense.
Sure, yeah. The women in the walls sometimes have coffee with me. When I set out a clean spoon, saucer, and the cup they like, with thin lips flaring out, they know they're welcome. What is it, I ask them? Unkindness, they say. Maybe fragility. How quickly things are ruined. Ruin is, maybe, a state of stillness, I say, and movement takes a constant effort. They call me glib, so I lace their drinks and take my pills. They forget I'm the only one who makes time for them. My lights flicker on and off, and I'm not sure if this is them in their death throes or the heavy rains. They wilt my daffodils too, but maybe it was just their time. They call an ambulance, but maybe that was me, because they bloodied my brow and dropped a paring knife in my foot, with my fingerprints everywhere. They dig themselves up with two of my hands. They cry into my sink when I shave, when I grab my face, when I don't know what I'm doing.
I know what's coming for this piece because we talked about it a little bit, and I'm on the edge of excitement right now. But I really, when we first went over this and I was reading through it myself, one line stuck out to me just for the beauty of the phrase in my mind, and that was, ruin is, maybe, a state of stillness, I say, and movement takes a constant effort. Oh, man.
You like that?
That's just, I mean, I'm not going to analyze it over, I'm just going to let it stand for itself, but that is just a beautiful concoction of words.
Yeah. I do like the hesitation in the delivery of those lines, because it's punctuated with the maybe and then the I say right in the middle, and he doesn't just say it straight. It's kind of like a maybe suggestion. There's a lot of insecurity in that in the delivering of that line. So yeah.
So who is John Cristie?
John Cristie is a serial killer who chopped people up and put them in his walls. Yeah.
Woo! Yeah. Welcome to the show, everyone.
Yep. But I think this poem is noteworthy and interesting to me because, there's, I don't know about anyone else, but I get this weird feeling where I feel like I'm supposed to feel something for things that have happened where I am, right? But it's this weird nebulous, I don't know. Going to school in Scotland, there are these plaques everywhere on the buildings that, like, the first chapter of Harry Potter was written in this building, or James Clerk Maxwell, who pioneered like electromagnetism or whatever, was born in this house. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle wrote, half of the Hounds of Baskerville in this house, or it's just like there's too much history around Scotland. But you come across those places and you go like, I mean, that's awesome, but I don't know what I'm supposed to be feeling. Is there this, am I supposed to feel a reverence for it? Am I supposed to feel like this was kind of the fulcrum of,
Yeah, where's the potency? Is there a potency? It's hard to tell. Excuse me 1 second, guys. I was letting the next programmer in the building, so getting that off my chest there.
That's what that was.
Yeah. This is such, I don't know, that idea of having, or not knowing what to feel when something has happened, like something significant in an area. Yeah. It's almost like in archaeology, in a certain sense.
Yeah, well, like my apartment building, they told me all about the previous tenant of my apartment. She lived there for like 20, 30 years or something. She was a blind, disabled woman who lived alone. And, there are sort of echoes of her living there. Like the stove has little, what do you call it? Nail polish dots on the dials, so she would know how hot it is and like where don't turn it up past this point because it's going to get too hot too fast, kind of thing. The shower has all these like handles screwed into the walls so that
for her benefit,
so that she could support herself and all that kind of stuff.
Man.
And it is, I don't know, It is that weird, like, kind of haunted feeling, but not really, because it's not negative. They're just, I don't know.
Yeah, we always talk about the presence of people, like, oh, this person came in the room, and, like, all heads turned and looked at him, and, like, it was just glorious. Their smile lights up the room, or, like, they were sad, and we could tell, like, a cloud hung over them and stuff. But it's always a really fascinating topic to think about. Them not being there and still having a presence, it is ghostly. Like they're not even there, but I can still feel them. Like there's still like warmth here, almost like getting out of a bed and getting back into it, and there's still the warmth there. And I really don't know.
That's a good way to put it.
I really don't know how to classify what you would even call that type of feeling besides haunting.
And it's not nostalgia. It's I don't know. It's hard to figure
a weird
out.
thing because
So I
nostalgia
wrote a poem
should be
about
personal,
it.
Which is perfect. Which is what you should do. If you want to be on the show, I should say. So we're in the last couple minutes of the show here, and I wanted to recap some things that I thought were kind of cool. We talked about using words for monetary value, in a certain way, and then how you separate that to use words for both the monetary value and yourself. because you need to have yourself in this writing sometimes, and
Right.
how it can be a snapshot of something you've been through or something you've experienced. Having
Okay.
a really solid kind of like the Untitled piece is what I'm referring to for that one.
Yeah.
And then went to this one where your words, your poem here, is how you've experienced or how you are experiencing other people who are there, not there at the same time,
Right.
in a certain way. And really, the whole point I'm getting to, and if Brandon was here, he'd laugh at me because I always like to make broad, overarching connections that people are
Let's do
going,
it.
he's psychotic. I don't know what he's talking about. But mine here would just be, words are so infinite. There's so many things you can do with them, and so many ways to relate to them.
Yeah.
And each person, when they put it and condense it into a piece of poetry like this, are putting some of themselves and then some of a perspective of the world they have.
Mhm.
And that is always the most beautiful thing I can see someone do. It's
Oh.
absolutely phenomenal. So there's my last little like.
It's quite flattering.
Yeah. So thank you for being on the show, I
Yeah.
should say. Any last thoughts, anything you want to touch on too?
Oh man, I'd love to talk about just the infinite nature of words and how a single word can contain such a insane philosophy.
Yeah.
Learning a new word. I mean, obviously not like a name of an object or something like that, but there are certain words you if you pick up, it kind of changes. I don't know. You can ruminate on it, and it changes your perspective on these huge swaths of life. You know what I mean?
As it's mentally digested.
Yeah, even if you, I mean, there's a whole philosophy behind it already. But if you when you learn the term wabi sabi or something, that there's beauty and impermanence, and even just that simple idea.
Yeah. The depth.
Yeah, you can ruminate on that, meditate. It kind of changes. I don't know.
Man,
It's fun.
I think, unfortunately, this is the last 10 seconds of our show, but I think that's a solid spot to end. So
Great.
I appreciate you being on here, man. This has been fantastic.
It's so much fun. Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
I'm sure we're probably going to have you back. So
Perfect.
if anyone wants to hear Nick's stuff again, he'll probably be on again. Don't worry. Don't be calling me and telling me that he needs to be on immediately, because it's in the works. This has been Writing on Air, and Writing on Air is made possible, as soon as I click all the buttons that I have to here, by the generous contributions of KZFR supporters and by Harrison Daily Wright Accountancy Corporation in Chico. Harrison Daily Wright, specializing in accounting and bookkeeping services, auditing, tax prep and planning, and management support services for nonprofit organizations and more. To reach Harrison Daily Wright, call 895-1209. Hope everyone enjoyed the show and have a good night.